your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. It's Locked On Eagles, as always, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri, and we thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase, LOE, at GC24_football. It's a Wednesday edition of the show. We've got crossover Thursday tomorrow with David Harrison of Locked On Washington. Gino's got that show for you coming tomorrow morning. We have Friday as well, Locked On QB1. And then, Gino, we kick off the new year in style, 2022, with a huge matchup on Sunday against the Washington football team. As I mentioned on the show yesterday, the Eagles can clinch with a win. A Vikings loss to the Packers. And then it was a Saints loss or a 49ers win against Houston. And then suddenly you can buy I don't know if you guys are the kind of people that buy playoff t-shirts still. I feel like after the Super Bowl win, you probably stop with division champs apparel and playoff apparel. But hey, if you're that kind of guy or girl, you can order one maybe on Monday.
We're here again, man. We're about to finish up season 4. Yeah, tomorrow we have the crossover with David Harrison. I'm wearing the same clothes on tomorrow's episode because we recorded it the same day. So don't worry, I didn't wear the same clothes twice in a row for our YouTube people. I just wanted to put that out there. But Lou, we're about to finish up 2022, a year that we didn't know which direction this season was going to go. Yeah, 2021, we're moving into 2022. Early on in the year, I'm just thinking back. A year ago, we were trying to figure out who's going to be our coach. Did we have Doug Peterson in the plans moving forward? Was
We've
Carson
come a
Wentz?
long way. Yeah, there's been a lot. That's what we're going to do on today's show. In segment 2 and segment 3, we're going to review how 2021 went for the Eagles. Like, are we happy with where we've been 365 days later? Do we expect to be at this point, considering where me and you thought the team was a year ago? We'll get into that because, Gino, like you were saying, I mean, it's been, you said it, we've done 4 seasons together now on Locked On Eagles, and they've all been roller coasters. But I think in this year, there's been more that's changed in 1 year than any of the other seasons we've done together.
I'm just going back through now all the people with their horrible takes and Nick Sirianni's first press conference. And it just goes to show you that if you just wait a little bit and just relax and let things play out, you might be fighting for the playoffs, Lou. You might be fighting for a chance to go upset your division rivals. Yep. And get redemption for that. We all remember losing 3 times to Dallas in 1 year. We have a chance to do that again. So just take this as it is. I didn't expect to be here. I thought we'd be talking draft right about now. And Lou, we could be going into the middle of January talking about this team playing in meaningful football. And this is what I want to keep doing. I love winning when you're an Eagles fan and when it's unexpected, because when the expectations are there and you do bad, it seems like it's even worse. But this is when you're at the casino and you've just hit blackjack 5 times in a row. And you're saying, okay, I got a little bit of cash to spread around. I got a little bit of money I could throw out there. That's what they're playing with right now. They're playing with house money. They thought they were going to be out. The national media had them in a top 5 draft pick this season. And they said, you know what? We're going to show everybody that we don't care what you say. We might start 2-5, but it's about how you finish in this league. And right now, Lou, they have a chance that they could have won 8 games in a row, potentially 9, in 2 one-score games, 1 to LA and 1 to the Giants. This team's a dang good football team.
And they need to finish it up this weekend because they can do it this weekend against Washington, and I don't want to keep it alive in Week 18 against the Dallas Cowboys. And so what that's going to take, obviously all hands on deck, depth, having their guys ready, and it wasn't looking great this week when it comes to the offensive line depth and the defensive line starters. Just in the entirety of our trench depth was pretty bad because of the COVID reserve list. But today, a lot of good news came from players returning from the list. That includes offensive tackles Andre Dillard and LaRaven Clark. And then defensive ends Ryan Kerrigan and Taron Jackson were also removed from the COVID list. And, that's important, especially for the defensive ends, because Derek Barnett was just placed on the list. And so at that point, with Brandon Graham already out, Josh Sweat had been your only defensive end that was healthy and available. I mean, at that point, maybe Jannard Avery was going to have to play some edge. So getting Jackson back is more important to me than Kerrigan, because Kerrigan's been horrible this year and looks completely shot. But just having bodies there is going to be important because, again, like I said, it was Josh Sweat, and that's pretty much it.
What do you mean? You didn't buy into the long con that the Eagles have been doing, that they waited 17 weeks for Ryan Kerrigan to finally unleash his full potential, and they're going to get him in the revenge game?
After watching the guy on the field, he's been. That was a brutal signing.
I'm excited for him because he could potentially be a guy moving forward that we really look to as saying, okay, this guy's an integral part of the defensive line rotation. And just personally, as somebody who loved Teron Jackson coming out of the draft, just seeing him do what he does, I'm happy with it. And then now we have the ability to move Fletcher Cox outside a little bit more if you don't have the edge help there. Milton Williams
too. Yeah, they played him most primarily at defensive end in the preseason. So that'll be something to definitely expect.
And I'm excited for that because now it just goes to show, was Gannon doing well because he got the guys in the right position and they're not able to adapt? But here we can see if they're limited at edge, they have to adapt. It's now a necessity. And I would like to see that because on the offensive line, Lou, we have seen that. We've seen what happens when a couple guys go down. But what happens with the defensive line? They've been relatively healthy all year outside of Brandon Graham, who's been out for the season. They've had their pitchers there. They've had their arms there. Now they're going to be a little shorthanded. What's going to happen? And especially in a game where you don't want to give Taylor Heineke or Kyle Allen any sort of time up front, because they're a team that if they do go out ahead, they have the defense to keep you in check, especially now as healthy as they are. But you want to be in a position where those guys could get after the quarterback and do what they've done. And I think the defensive line, as important as the offensive line has been, is just as important to the success of this team moving into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think too, this team is blitzing a lot more lately. They're more comfortable being aggressive against, average to bad quarterbacks. And I think especially with the lack of defensive end depth, expect a lot of that on Sunday against Washington. Gino, before we take a break, just what are your overall thoughts of Josh Sweat? Because he had a huge game against the Giants last week. He has 6 sacks this year now after that sack on Jake Fromm on Sunday, which ties last year's career high. Looking back, overall, I think a lot of people expected maybe this to be the Josh Sweat breakout year. I wouldn't say it was that completely, but they did pay him in a contract extension that has him right now as the 15th highest paid defensive end. Are you happy with that deal looking back on how he's been this year? I feel like Sweat's been kind of, I don't want to say quiet based on performance this year, but just based on people talking about him, kind of under the radar. So what have been, you've been a big Josh Sweat guy since the start. What are your overall thoughts of how he's performed this year?
And I want to take that discussion right back to the start. He wasn't talked about that much coming out of Florida State due to that knee, due to him playing in a position that was out of position naturally to him, and in a draft that wasn't deep at edge rusher. Because if you look at what the New Orleans Saints had to do to acquire an edge rusher in that class, they gave up an additional first-round pick to go up and draft Marcus Davenport. And I tweeted this out the other day. If you look at the numbers between Marcus Davenport and Josh Sweat, who were drafted over 100 picks apart in that exact draft, Josh Sweat is right on par with one of the top guys in that class. His numbers are very, very similar to what Marcus Davenport has produced. So to get a guy in the 4th round and pay him what they're paying him, that's a steal. The edge position, I cannot say it enough. If you don't pay the guys early, you're going to be paying Bosa prices. You're going to be paying against both of those Bosas, against Myles Garrett, against all of these guys that are coming into the league now at a position where the talent seems to be as good as ever. So you have to look outside of the first round sometimes. You have to look outside of the Derek Barnetts where you're paying them 9.4 in a year where did he deserve 9.4?
Well, and he has the difference too, Sweat has the talent of somebody more than a 4th round pick. Yeah. Sure. And I think the thing is here, he has 6 sacks, which is tied for a career high. I think some people would have expected more, but you got to remember Brandon Graham is the perfect
all over the corner.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Brandon Graham is the perfect example. Eagles fans should know more than anybody. Sacks don't always show the whole story about a pass rusher's efficiency. And I feel like Josh Sweat this year has consistently got to the quarterback more than pretty much anybody. Even Hargrave was really consistent the first half of the year. But when it comes to like, start to finish right now, with still 2 games left, I think Sweat's been your most, consistent pass rusher. On Sunday, he was the highest graded PFF defender. He had 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, a pass deflection, 4 quarterback hurries, 4 tackles, and that 92.4 grade. So he'll have some help, though, on Sunday with Jackson back, Kerrigan, Jannard Avery, I'm sure will be used a lot.
I think Teron Jackson's the next jersey purchase. I think I'm deciding now. I think he's my guy, man. I loved him coming.
You have the most unique jersey closet. JJ Arcega-Whiteside's going to be Teron Jackson. After that, brother. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe Zach McPherson will play okay next year.
Or maybe Asante Samuel, who Darius Slay was giving some credit to today.
I've gotten Asante jersey in the closet. Yeah, that was great. He does deserve to make the Hall of Fame. Let's get into coming up next here on Locked On Eagles, a look back at the year of 2021 through the lens of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's coming up right here on your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by Built Bar. It's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar, and it makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it, unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or kind of tastes like a chemical spill. You want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring by like week 3. You might be thinking this is just not worth it. Where's the chocolate? Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and it tastes just like it. And it's all the flavor, but none of the guilt. 130 calories in every bar, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Go to BuiltBar.com or Built.com today and use the promo code LOCKED15, and we can get you 15% off your next order. Again, it's Built.com, and the promo code is LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. Guys, this is Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louis DiBiase. He is Gino Camilleri. And Gino, it's New Year's in just a couple days. It's crazy because I feel like we're all still recouping from 2020, but here comes 2022. And man, like 2020 was a disastrous year, for just the entire planet. But the Philadelphia Eagles, like perfectly, their 2020 was like the perfect reflection of what 2020 was for most people. And then, so that resulted in a lot of change this offseason. Head coach Doug Peterson fired. Franchise quarterback Carson Wentz traded. A lot of different veteran core pieces of that Super Bowl team move on. No more Alshon Jeffrey. No more Deshaun Jackson. Zach Ertz gets traded. It's a pretty brand new looking team. Nick Sirianni comes in. Jalen Hurts is QB1. There's just so much that happened. And I just want to get your overall thoughts, just a year in review from where we were looking at the Eagles last year at this point to where they are now. Have they exceeded expectations? Are they kind of where you thought they were going to be? Because, it felt like they were pretty directionless, coming into this new era. But I feel like that's, they're not where I want them to be yet. But I think they're farther along for sure.
I think I'm beyond pleased with where they are, Lou. I mean, going back to this time last year, right? It was a team that we're just trying to look through this fog, and you can't.
It was heartbreaking, man. I mean,
it was a tough time. It was
they
very
lost
tough.
The Super Bowl winning head coach. The franchise quarterback looked like nothing like that. I mean, It was for us.
It reminded me of the late 2010s when it was like McNabb's gone, Westbrook's gone, Dawkins is gone.
After
Andy
the 2009
Reid's
season, for sure.
Yeah. It was one of those seasons where it's like, did we go forward and then just jump off the cliff backwards?
Because I don't think anybody expected that, man. They struggled in 2018 and 2019.
I don't think anybody expected them to do what they did in 2020 and then expect them to do what they did this year. And I think in this year, especially in football, there's a lot of noise in all the different ranks of football, in college with the transfer portal, in the NFL with the whole COVID thing. I think one of the things that you could look at with Philadelphia is that, one, they've exceeded my expectations, and 2, I think they're just doing what the Philadelphia Eagles do now. They're just an adversity-ridden team who's not going to make excuses. Lou, you hear all these teams that blame injuries, yada, yada, so forth and so on. Going back to the Super Bowl, Jason Peters being out was never an excuse. Darren Sproles being out was never an excuse. Carson Wentz being out was never an excuse. Doug Peterson being fired this year wasn't an excuse. Moving on from your quarterback wasn't an excuse. They're going about their business in a time when there's a lot of nonsense stuff off the field that is being talked about. I know we look at Jacksonville with the whole Urban Meyer thing. People were laughing at Nick Sirianni because of his press conference, but how foolish do you feel that everybody inside that building feels the direction? They know
should be
the
a
direction.
dark horse coach of the year candidate. Yeah.
I absolutely agree, man. And to see where we came from, where we started in that fog-ridden valley, and like you could just pretend like you're playing one of the old Resident Evil games where you're looking around corners like what's going to come next, and you're not sure what's going to pop out. And then now I almost feel like we have that guiding light of where we can go forward, because even if you don't have all the guys you have this year, even if Jalen Hurts wasn't 100% the guy, quote unquote, moving forward, or even if you didn't want to give him a chance next year, I think the head coach and just the direction of this franchise, even Howie, man, I think he's turned a new leaf to an extent.
I'll give Howie one thing, Gino. He is a huge part of why these things keep getting torn down, but he's very good at building them back up. I mean, they've now had 3 head coaches that have put their team right off the start in contention. I mean, Chip Kelly won 10 games in his first 2 years back to back. Doug Peterson won a championship in his second year. Nick Sirianni now has his team at 8-7. So yeah, I mean, I think for where me and you thought they were in August and where they are now, I think we kind of thought this is like the glass half full perspective. We said, 7 to 10 wins. I thought we both leaned more towards 7 than 10. They're exceeding that a little bit more. They're on the better side of that. But I would say they're exceeding expectations a lot more from where they were right now, because when you lose a franchise quarterback that you just invested all that money in, when you lose a head coach that, to me, I think it was premature. To me, those were still decisions I would not have made. And considering the salary cap hell they were in and just the lack of resources they had this offseason, the fact that they are where they are right now, yes, they definitely exceeded expectations and have done a lot with a little.
I totally agree. And it's hard to look past like what was being said about this coaching staff and about these players and about Jalen Hurts, not just by us, but by people in the media. And I think like the ultimate disrespect is looking back and seeing people on that first Nick Sirianni press conference saying, oh, is this guy really going to be the coach? Oh, is this guy for real? Like, he's just making all these analogies. You didn't even give the guy the respect, the chance to go out on the field and prove it. And I feel like the same way with Jalen Hurts. I feel like we kind of got to eat a little bit of a crow because we wanted to get the guy out of here this year without even giving him a chance. And he's kind of not fully exceeded our expectations, but done some things that went above and beyond where we thought he could be. With the injuries coming off of last year, you didn't know what your offensive line play was going to be. You didn't know if the guys on defense were going to be Gannon's guys. And I think we've answered a lot of questions, not all of them. And I think there's teams around the NFL that thought they had their script to move forward and kind of have to move in a backwards direction. Sure. I thought Washington would be in a better place than the Eagles were.
So did I.
And
I thought they were a super
now.
team this year. Yeah, I agree. No, Gino, I think, I think a lot of it is to, for this bounce back, a lot of it's on the veteran core pieces that were already here, right? I mean, when you have Jason Kelsey coming back and Lane Johnson, Isaac Seumalo before he got hurt and Jordan Mailata, like when you have that offensive line, when you have the defensive line, that's going to really stabilize things. And it's why you still said, coming into the year, we did not think this was a 4-win team, despite coming off a 4-win season, one of the worst years, a disastrous season in franchise history. But it's not all like, you got to give credit to Howie for building this thing back up, but more so too, like Nick Sirianni, you don't have, I'm not sure if we have the quarterback yet, or if the Eagles have all the pieces on defense yet, or even on offense. But I think one thing you do have right is the head coach, and you have a lot of promising future assets, with the draft picks you have in 2022 and the young players you have like on offense, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins. Up front, you found Landon Dickerson as well. And, Jack Driscoll was playing really well before he got hurt. And Nate Herbig and Mailata's a stud at left tackle. So you didn't answer a lot of questions yet. There's still work to be done on defense, and quarterback is still the huge question. But like you said, you have now your left tackle of the future. You have your true wide receiver one of the future, your tight end one of the future, a great young backfield with Sanders and Gainwell. You have your head coach, Nick Sirianni. There's a lot of stuff that you check the boxes in your first year that are crucial to a, long-term success. So I think from where I thought they were a year ago, I'm like, this is doomed. I mean, when you lose your franchise quarterback and your coach, Howie's still the GM, like this is going to be a nightmare. I'm not, again, they're not where I want them to be, but I'm way happier than I thought I was going to be a year ago.
Yeah, looking up at a mountain, it's saying you want to say, "Oh, let me get there in the blink of an eye." You got to take one step. You're gonna fall down. You're gonna grab a rock, and it's gonna be loose, and you're gonna slip a bit. But then you're also gonna make good progress. And I think we've seen glimmers of hope, and then also glimmers of downfall this season.
Yeah.
But the thing is, every time they get hit, they kind of get back up. And what I was talking about, like doing what the Eagles do and going through adversity. I love what you said about the three coaches that came in right away and had success. At the end of the day, injuries are always going to be there. Coaching discrepancies in terms of play calling and execution will always be there. But when you boil a team down to its purest point, it starts in the trenches. And what have they had for 10 plus years, Lou? For 20 years? They're going to have good trench play, which then sets a very good tone. That football mentality of you have to go out there and beat up the other team and just play hard-hitting football and get back to the basics. And I think they did that. I think they whittled this thing down to bare bones, Lou. Once Doug was gone, once Carson was gone, it was fresh. It was a fresh slate. It was, what do we want to do now? And I think they put together a plan and executed on it very, very well. Yes, there are still a lot of steps to take. We're only in chapter 1. Sirianni's not even written his first chapter yet as a head coach. He hasn't finished out this year. There's a lot more to come. But to say that it was all doom and gloom this time last year,
it was. It was more than that, man. It was
I think we've done a complete 180 because I don't go to bed on a Sunday being disappointed anymore. I say, okay, how can we get better Monday? What are we going to do Tuesday? What are we going to do Wednesday? Like coming on here, I'm even re-energized talking about this team. And I feel like our fans are listening to us as well. Because when you get hit that hard and everything is against you and you're like, where do we go?
Yeah, there's definitely more hope.
The bottom doesn't seem like it's there, but here we are. And sometimes, like I say, I always bring this quote up from Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, relax. Everything works itself out. And in Philadelphia, as much as you and our fans will hate on this front office, in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles are very respected for how they build teams.
Well, they were, let's be real though, we were all totally justified in criticizing them for tearing this thing down.
Absolutely. But they've never been a team, Lou, where you look at like Cleveland, where like 6 years in a row, they have no plan. Even if their plan does go awry,
my question is never, can they build it up? And my question is never, can they build it up? It's like the sustainability thing, because once you find that success, and that's something that's still looking down the road. Nick Sirianni, when he's 3 years in and he's made a couple deep runs and he still has no, front office say that those are the things I'm concerned about long-term. But yeah, I mean, this front office's ability to build things back up from nothing is definitely impressive, and they're in a much better spot than I thought they were going to be a year ago. We'll continue to reflect on 2021 coming up next, guys. This is Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, and make sure to, with the college football playoffs right around the corner, to check out the Ultimate College Football Playoff Preview 2021. Local experts, betting, advice, and draft analysis. The most comprehensive college football playoff preview is live now, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. This is Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri, and we thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. 2022 is right around the corner. The Eagles are going to be playing their next game in 2022 against the Washington football team. Gino, a great chance to start the year off right and clinch a playoff spot. So that would be a highlight already of the year 2022. It might be a lot of people's favorite moment of the year will be day one and day two. Heading back into 2021, though, we'll do it this way to wrap up the show. What was your favorite moment of 2021 for the Eagles and your least favorite? So from last January to now, like what are the two highlight spots? It could be a game, a player performance, a draft pick, a podcast moment, what was it for you? The favorite first. We'll start with positive.
I think it's easy to say like where we are right now is very positive, but
Yeah.
like the one thing that really was like we are moving in the direction that you and I have talked about is going back to April and that night that they took Devontae Smith.
We have the same one. Yeah, I wrote when they drafted Devontae Smith.
It was our second most listened to episode this year. It was one of my favorite reactions, and just like
that was our most
genuine
energetic
joy.
reaction. I think the second most energetic was probably when the Eagles took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside for you. And then I think when they pulled off making the playoffs in 2019, that was pretty up there too. So but that Devontae, I always watch back that video. And me and I was watching the game on a delay or the draft. And so you were waiting for my reaction.
I had to keep that secret for like 5 seconds,
which was impressive, man, because that was your guy since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
You had been saying, just get me Devontae Smith on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
So good on you for containing that because, they finally, Gino, was just like they finally stopped outthinking
They picked
themselves.
good football players.
Yeah, they just took the guy.
Moment.
Like they took the obvious pick. And while we both liked the Rager pick, that was them outsmarting themselves. And even the Arcega-Whiteside pick, like DK Metcalf was the obvious player there. And they finally just took that guy. And the fact that it actually worked out just feels really, really good because Devontae was a stud and he was an exciting player at an exciting position, and it's exceeded my expectations. And I think there's more meat on the bones considering, his efficiency without really a crazy amount of targets. So I think that was definitely the highlight. And I think whoever the quarterback is, if it's Hurts long-term or another quarterback, like they've got their receiver. They have, to me, the most complete receiver the Eagles have had since Terrell Owens.
Just going back to that night and seeing that selection and seeing Dave Gettleman as mad as he was that the Eagles jumped with Dallas Cowboys to get in front of the New York Giants, and then he goes back and drafts Kadarius Toney. And like you said, Lou, that was a pick that I've been waiting for since that national championship back in 2018 when Tua threw that game-winning touchdown to Devontae Smith.
And when Ruggs was getting all the hype and Jerry Jeudy, you were saying, wait a year.
Wait a year, and we got our guy. And it is a great thing because even in that next day, they pick Landon Dickerson, picking another smart, good football player, then Milton Williams, then Kenneth Gainwell.
I wasn't happy with those picks, but they've worked out so far for sure.
The thing about the draft is, and I think it always just boils down, and people who've listened or ever watched Ted Lasso, there's a quote in England, and they always say it's the hope that kills you. And the draft is the ultimate glimmer of hope. That really started a spark. And I think like it all was a culmination of all the hard work that everybody put in. Nick Sirianni comes in and people don't know who he's going to be. And they just have that rapport during the draft visit. And he gets a good sense from Devontae, and he tells Howie that he's the guy, and they agree that he's the guy. And it's like, oh, do we have cohesion in the front office? You went ahead of a division rival in the Giants, and last year with CeeDee Lamb, we thought we were going to get him, but now we get Devontae Smith, and it's like everything will happen when it's supposed to happen.
I was sick of watching other guys like that. I was just so tired of watching Metcalf and McLaurin and Jefferson, Ayuk and Lamb. So many guys that I thought should be on this damn team playing well elsewhere. And the fact that like Devontae was going to be another one of those players, Gino, like if they would have took like Kwity Paye, although he's been better this year than I thought he was going to be for the Colts, and I'm watching Devontae tear it up for the Giants, that would have been depressing. So I'm glad they finally just got that player that we wanted, that we mocked in our ultimate locked on mock draft 3 years in a row as a receiver, and they finally took the one we wanted. That was definitely the highlight. What was the low light for you in 2021? Just the thing you could not get over the most?
I mean, it definitely was a confusing time when they fired Doug and got rid of Carson, but I thought I got over it pretty well simply because I'm so numb to these moves by now. I mean, my worst years were when Dawkins and McNabb and Westbrook.
Right, the core you grew up loving.
Yeah, after that, I was like, this is a business. The one thing that really hurt was after that Raiders game. I was really down because I thought like we had turned a leaf. And I thought this team was going to be different. Sure. And like, it almost felt that they were that 2020s team. But it just goes to show that even in the darkest time, like 8 weeks removed from there, we're talking about the playoffs, Lou. And that's why, as much as this sport frustrates the heck out of me time and time again, I love it. I love it. What better reality show can you watch where all this stuff happens right in front of our eyes and we really feel a part of it? And I feel like we're all feeling a part of it moving into 2022. And all the fans, regardless of when you started being a fan, if it's that 2017 year back in the early 2000s when Lou and I became fans back in the 80s, 90s, it really feels like we're buying in again. And this is the type of team I want to get behind. And yeah, that Raiders game stunk, but hey, 8 weeks ago was 8 weeks ago, my friend. We're moving up and onward.
I think everybody knows for me, the low light was trading Carson Wentz just because, again, I knew how bad he was in 2020, but I felt like it was more about the situation. And I was just so terrified to see him go to another team and play well. And the fact that he was doing it and is doing it with Frank Reich, although it's been an up and down year, has one of the most efficient passing years of quarterbacks. I was terrified of that. And it just, because you want that quarterback, like you watch the Patrick Mahomes of the worlds and Lamar Jacksons and Josh Allen's, and you're just like, I just cannot wait to have that guy. And for, 5 years, you and I and most Eagles fans were convinced the Eagles had that player. And so the fact that it ended just 5 years in felt so premature. It just after one horrible year just felt so premature. So it was hard to get over, and still I'm not over it until they get a quarterback. But I think the Eagles being just as good as the Colts pretty much record-wise makes it a lot easier to stomach because, man, was I terrified of like the Colts being dominant this year, the Eagles winning 4 or 5 games, and just, that kind of year, Gino. I was really scared of going through that for 18 weeks. But, this playoff run has made me very hopeful and still optimistic. And while I'm very focused still on that quarterback position, they've made it a lot easier for sure to stomach. So overall, 2021, I think, has gone and did go a lot better for the Birds than I think we thought it would have 365 days ago.
The thing about this team is no matter what season you look at, I always feel like it's a roller coaster, even in the one season that all of us hold in the highest regard, the Super Bowl season. That was not easy to get through. We had to see Carson Wentz go out, and then Nick Foles comes in, and we all think that, hey, Nate Sudfeld might have to start in this playoff game, right? That was a discussion at some point in time that I'll never forget.
Yeah, these seasons have just never gone the way we thought they were going to. Sometimes for the better, 2018, 2019, sometimes in 2021, sometimes for the worse in 2020.
It'll always keep you on your toes. This team is always a team that is going to try and do right and put the best product on the field. And Lou, looking back at this team, the last 2 decades, 3 losing seasons. I mean, or 3 seasons where they've only
maybe
had
me and
like
you will
4
get
wins.
3 playoff years out of 4 together on the podcast. So
yeah, it's one of those teams that if I'm saying I got to cover the Giants, Washington, or Dallas, I'm picking this one.
Yeah, we never run out of stuff to talk about for
yes,
sure.
Sir.
That's the one thing, man. For as frustrating as 2020 and 2021 was at times for us, we never ran out of content, even for a daily podcast, for sure. So that is 2021 in review right here on Locked On Eagles. Guys, tomorrow, Gino joins David Harrison of Locked On Washington for our crossover Thursday. And then we've got Locked On QB1 on Friday before the game Sunday.
Last show of the year, brother. Last show of the year on Friday.
Last show. That's right. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Louis DiBiase. This has been Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Subscribe to the show wherever you get the show. And we're on YouTube as well, on Twitter, at Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.